time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Thursday Hacksaw's Headlines podcast, another two-continent broadcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, based in San Diego, with my co-host, who's normally out in left field, but instead he's broadcasting from holiday in Ireland. John Riley joins us. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego to serve you. You've got projects for 2024. You need materials. You want advice. You need DIXIELINE Lumber. And by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. We will all need help with our eyes sometime down road. When that time comes, from vision tests to glasses to contacts or more serious things, think North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. John Riley, afternoon here, evening there. How are things in Ireland? Great to check with you again.
Yeah, doing great. You know, it's 9:00 at night here. We're down in the southern part of Ireland, kind of on the edge of the world. And it's terrific down here. We're having a grand time and looking forward to talking sports with you.
Is it correct, what I told you before you get on the plane, that when you walk down any of these villages in Ireland, there'll be a pub every third door?
Oh, no doubt. We've experienced that as well. And as we've gotten further and further south, it's more and more rural. But even these tiny little villages, there's 2 or 3 pubs. So it's terrific.
Pub, church. I know where you've been because I've been there. John, before we launch, because we have a lot of topics on the table, let's just talk briefly about what we're going to try to do for everybody's with us on the live stream. It's called Fans Forum. I don't know if this is going to blow up on our face, but we're going to try it. Explain to everybody who's watching us on live stream how they can join us either from the U.S. or get to you in Ireland on Fans Forum.
Yeah, so this is your chance to get involved. You got a question in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. You just type it in the live chat on Facebook, on X, or on YouTube. We'll see it on our screen. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
And a reminder, if you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day. It's LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Also, at the homepage, there's an orange box in the upper right-hand side. Fill that out so you can join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You'll get access to a whole ton of special things that we present for my website as well, the podcast. And we want you to share. We want you to subscribe. We want you to tell everybody what you're doing with our podcast. Join our team. John, we got a ton of topics on the table. Since you've been gone, your team has not done anything. So give me your opinion from left field and give me your opinion from Ireland about this Padre franchise and where they are right now.
Oh, I mean, we're following the games here in Ireland. It's probably one of the few sports events in America we're following. And it's been a disaster. And I'm seeing Padres Twitter is already lit up. They're angry. They're furious. What's the answer here, Lee?
Well, the Padres go out on this road trip dragging a losing streak with them. They go out on this road trip after having played so well against the Dodgers, losing 3 in a row to a team that at one point was 8-28, the Colorado Rockies. And that headline, I think, succinctly tells it all. Problems. 2024 is starting to look a lot like 2023, which means underachievers. The Padres have given back everything they earn in beating the Dodgers last weekend. Here's a stat that'll blow you away. Last year, John, through that disappointing season, write this number down. Padres were 9-15 against the bottom teams. 9-15. This year, they are already 6-11 against the bad teams in baseball. Errors, problems with runners in scoring position. They can't get them home. Mid-bullpen blowups. Manny Machado doesn't look right. I think he's lost the strength in his right arm, his right elbow, the strength and the power in his swing. Manny is hitting .222 in a 2-for-33 stretch right now. Xander Bogaerts is hitting .213. Ha-Seong Kim is hitting .204. And Tatis does not look like Tatis. Pre-suspension for steroids, he's hitting 256. The strength of the Padre batting order has a collective batting average of 233. 233. Compare that to the Dodgers. Their big bats, middle of the batting order, they're hitting 313. And what's become bothersome is Mike Shildt is living in a different world, different universe. The quotes coming out of his mouth after 3 bad losses to Colorado: don't criticize my team. I believe in these guys. We are competing. The sky is not falling. I don't know very many people that could agree with what Mike Shildt is saying right now. So, John, I've thrown a lot of stats at you. This record against losing teams is pitiful, considering this is a $160 million payroll, and you got problems with the middle and the strength and the highest paid players on the roster. And now they go into Atlanta to face the first-place Braves. John, your reaction from Ireland.
From Ireland, I'll tell you what. I watched the YouTube replay of Shilt's post-game presser, and it was clear that he's trying to cover for his players, doesn't want to throw any of his guys under the bus. But come on, I saw the play where Tatis, went back on a fly out and didn't touch second base on the way back. And here's Shildt saying, we're playing clean baseball. It just doesn't seem like there's the energy that they have. It seems to come and go. I'm perplexed by this. It seems, indeed, it's like what we saw last year, Lee. I mean, how can they fix this? And Michael King, by the way, was a shell of himself compared to the game against the Dodgers.
Well, both King and Dylan Cease both got beat up by the Rockies. That might have something to do with fatigue, because those guys are such forceful pitchers out there, John. Maybe that's one of the reasons that they're having some substandard outings. But those guys have been the cornerstone of the rotation, coupled obviously with Yu Darvish, and there is no Musgrove, and the 5th guy in the rotation can't get anybody out, talking about Waldron, and he's going to be the starting pitcher Friday in Atlanta. I just think the Padres have a lot of problems. So if you're with us on the live stream, we want you to jump into Fans Forum right now. Give us an opinion. Does 24 look like 23, which was a season of underachievement? Fans Forum chat room is open for Padre fans right now. Jump on board. We go from that. Topic number 2, John.
Yeah, Bally's Sports. This has always been a big topic here for Padre fans.
Well, we're lucky. We're lucky in San Diego because we're still seeing all the Padre games, and MLB has done right by the Padres in terms of the technical aspects of getting the games on the air without a loss. Now, Padres obviously are not financially doing what they did before under the Bally TV contract. Here's the latest. Rob Manfred just went public yesterday, and his lawyers are in bankruptcy court. Diamond Sports, which owns Bally Sports, is trying to restructure. And Rob Manfred's lawyers said, we can't allow this to happen. A year ago, right before opening day, Diamond Sports, which owned Bally Sports, reneged on its rights fee payments to the Padres and Arizona Diamondbacks. Baseball knew there was trouble coming. They got this thing done, but the Padres lost a chunk of money, so did Arizona. Diamond Sports still owns the rights to 12 other teams. Somehow they got a loan and was able to meet the rights fees to Texas, Atlanta, etc. However, they just lost their contract with Comcast, which is a big distributor. In the Southeast and in the Southwest, a large segment of baseball fans can't see the Braves, can't see the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros because the Comcast contract has gone away. And Diamond says, we need more time. And Rob Manfred's lawyers, John, said, don't give them more time. They're trying to finance something at the last minute to hold on to the 12 teams this year. They lost the carriage contract. Comcast is out. They're not distributing. MLB is furious. They said to the court, these people are stumbling through refinancing. There's no guarantees they can deliver this year. There's no extensions coming with Comcast, the big distributor. It's cost the teams $40 to $60 million per year in TV deals, and it's costing the fans the right to see games on TV. And Rob Manfred's lawyers said Major League Baseball does not want you to give them any further extension. They've had more than a year to work out bankruptcy refinancing, and they've not been able to do it, and they've not been able to get the extension with Comcast. In essence, what Rob Manfred is not saying is shut the door on these guys, force them into bankruptcy, do not allow them to continue to operate the way they are, and we're going to take the 12 remaining teams in under the MLB banner and do for them what we just did for the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks over the last year and a half. It's a real messy situation.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, remember back in the day, the Braves fans were able to watch, on WTBS, Ted Turner back in the 80s. Every game was on TV, including where I was growing up in San Francisco. But this is such a disaster for baseball. I mean, no other professional sports league has a situation like this. I mean, imagine if CBS or Fox reneged on their deal with the NFL. I mean, this is nuts.
Yep, exactly. Now, Diamond Sports, Bally, owns contracts with the NBA and NHL teams. They are operating those contracts this year. NBA and NHL have no idea what next year's TV contracts might look like. So that's the update on the TV situation. We are lucky here. John, we go from baseball to NFL football, and it's always the right time to talk NFL football.
Yeah, the schedule just came out, Lee. So let's break all this down. A lot of storylines.
Yeah, a lot of angles here. The big storyline is the NFL is going to play 2 games on Wednesday this coming season. Wednesday is Christmas Day, and they're not going to put the games on network TV. You can see it if you pay. They're going streaming. Netflix has gotten the 2 Christmas Day games on Wednesday, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Houston. You will pay for it. Of course, we have all the international games, the game in Brazil, Packers, Eagles in Sao Paulo, 3 games in London, Jaguars, Bears, Jaguars, Patriots, Jets, Vikings, and then game in Germany, New York Giants versus Carolina. The Chargers were supposed to be on that game against the Giants, and some reason the Charger deal did not go through. So that's the international games. Now, the schedules are out. I'm just going to break down a couple of the teams here, and then we'll just talk in generalities. 17-game schedule. 1 year, John, you play 8 at home and 9 on the road. The next year, you play 9 at home and 8 on the road. They flip-flop. Actually, the Chargers this season, they got 10 road games. Why? Well, they're going to play 9 on the road, and their 10th home game is going to be against the Raiders, which is essentially become a road game. So the Chargers, sadly, have 10 road games. It's a weird road schedule. 4 times this season, John, the Chargers have to play back-to-back games away. They go to Carolina and Pittsburgh, 2 East Coast trips back-to-back. They got Denver, Arizona, back-to-back. They go to Kansas City, Atlanta, back-to-back. They go to New England, and then the Raiders at the end of the season, back-to-back. I've never seen one team have so many back-to-back roadies as the Bolts do. Weirdly, they have 3 home games in a row in November. I'm not quite sure why that would be that way, but they got the Titans, Cincinnati, and Baltimore coming in back-to-back. Home schedule, they're going to play some good quarterbacks. Actually, the Bulls do play a pretty good home schedule. Mahomes, Derek Carr, New Orleans, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson of Baltimore, Baker Mayfield, Tampa, all coming in to play the Bolts. But tongue-in-cheek, Chargers have 10 road games, 9 on the schedule, and the home game against the Raiders, which actually becomes a road game when the Raiders fans buy out all the tickets. Okay, as for the Raiders, 10 home games, 10. They got 8 in Vegas, plus their fans are going to take over SoFi Stadium when they play the Chargers and the Rams. So the Raiders, to a degree, have 10 home games. They open against the Chargers. They go to Baltimore in week 2. That's a pretty rugged start to the season for a coach who doesn't quite have an established quarterback. In a 3-week window at midseason, they have to play at Kansas City, another game, and then at Miami. That's pretty vicious. And in a 3-week span late, they're going to play the Rams, the Chiefs, and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Despite it being a 10 home game schedule, it's a pretty rugged schedule. Rams open at Detroit to start the season. Wow. Week 3, 49ers. That's a rugged start. Rest of the schedule is pretty decent. End of the year, back-to-back, Buffalo and San Francisco. Colorful home schedule. Rams at home are going to get the Niners, the Packers, Miami, the Eagles, and Buffalo. A lot of their biggies are going to be at SoFi Stadium. And then, of course, they're also going to play the Raiders there. So, John, that's just a thumbnail sketch of where we are. Get ready to spend some money so we can watch Christmas Day games at your house after we open the presents, because Netflix has got that package. And then obviously we'll talk about your spin, Chargers, Raiders, Rams.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the streaming. I already subscribe to Netflix, so it's like a bonus for me. But I know a lot of other people don't. So it's all part of this streaming transition. But I remember, 10, 15 years ago, the NFL, when they constructed the schedule, you would always play home and away in your division. And then you usually would play a team in the other conference, or at least a division in the other conference. And then did you also play a division in your own conference? And then what was left were only a handful of games that I think were based on your record. So in many ways, it felt like the schedule itself, who you played was largely determined by a formula. It was only a question of when you played them and if they were road games or home games, et cetera.
Well, I think that formula still exists. You will play other divisions. They just break them down a little bit differently as to who's playing on the road versus so they coming into your building, et cetera. The fact that it's a 17-game schedule, makes it a little bit more complex. And the talk is we're going to 18 games next season, John. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But the Chargers, they're going to play some big time quarterbacks, but they're going to play them all at SoFi. And the Raiders, outside of a couple of back-to-back games, I think they got a decent schedule. And the Rams got an awful lot of biggies at SoFi. So I think the schedule is pretty fair to everybody, unless you're a fan that says, geez, all the Raider fans are going to buy up all the tickets and my team won't have home field advantage when the Raiders come play the Chargers or come play the Rams. Just a quick comment, who's had the toughest schedule? The guys, they just did a breakdown this morning. The guys with the toughest schedules are the guys in the AFC North. Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh have the three toughest schedules. Of course, that's a byproduct because their division is so rugged. But those are the three toughest. The weakest schedule, New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. And they're getting a lot of play on TV. They're going to play on primetime TV 6 times, which is kind of hard to believe considering how bad they've been. But the Jets only play 3 playoff teams in the first 10 weeks of the season. So Aaron Rodgers may have a chance to get out of the gate and do very well. Atlanta and New Orleans have the second and third easiest schedule. And in terms of travel, the Chargers have the worst travel schedule of anybody, John. They traveled 26,700 plus miles this season. And the Washington Commanders only traveled 10,100 miles. Everything is in the Northeast quadrant for the most part for Washington. So the Chargers, in addition to all these back-to-back on the road, the Chargers 26,000 plus miles in the air. Boy, that's a challenge.
That's a lot of frequent flyer miles. So I'm surprised Seattle isn't the one that has the most travel. But I will say this. I mean, I know this is kind of a crazy analogy, but back in the day, I helped design a schedule for our local Little League. And that was really complicated to get every one of the variables together. Now, think of like SoFi, you're sharing a stadium. They're sharing a stadium in New York. They probably have concerts and truck pulls and other things they're working on. This is a very difficult thing to figure out. There's so much complexity.
The correct word is variables. John, and the other piece of the equation, pal, is now you got Thursday night football, the odd game on Friday. At the end of the season, they're going to go Saturdays and Sundays. And then, by the way, we got the holiday game on Wednesday. And you have to help the teams that are playing on Wednesday, how you schedule them the week prior and what you do to them the week after, and then throw into the pot all the teams that have to go to Europe. I mean, it's really challenging to make it fair. And they work for months and months as to how to balance. And I was told by a former NFL executive that what they do now is they choose, first of all, who's going abroad. Then they choose the dates of who's playing these special games, be it the Christmas games on Wednesday, the Thursday night football, the Black Friday game. And once they've laid those out, then they try to work around to help those teams so they don't get an unfair disadvantage in the scheduling because they're playing on such weird days. Very complicated. And those of you who did new math might understand it a hell of a lot better than I do.
Well, Jacksonville gets more road games, don't they, internationally? Did they get 2?
Yeah, Jacksonville has actually got two road games. They play only 6 regular season games at home. But they play those, I believe, back-to-back weeks. So that helps them a little bit.
Do they get revenue from that? Because it's offsetting the local revenue in Jacksonville.
Exactly. And, of course, Jacksonville became the experimental team because they weren't drawn well and they were really bad. Now, they're going to be an experimental team going forward because they're going to lose their stadium for 2 years during massive renovation. So they're going to play. They may play more than 2 games abroad. We'll just have to see next year how they work out the schedule for the 2025 and 26 season. But they're going to be out of their stadium, I believe, until the start of 2027. But it's a Rubik's Cube trying to make it all come together. You're an NFL fan. Do you agree or disagree with me that the Chargers have to play 10 road games because they got 9 on the road, and then the Raiders come to town to buy up all the tickets, which acts like a 10th game? And how about Raider fan? Oh, Raider fan, do you have a computer? Do you want to be with us here on live stream? It's not stolen, is it? Raider fan, you got 10 home games. How do you like that? And if there's anybody out there, Rams fan, give us your opinion, because I tend to think that's a pretty doggone good but tough schedule for Sean McVay. Join us in Fans Forum if you're an NFL fan. John, we get to halftime. Our podcast is brought to you by North County Eye Center. Hey, we all need help with our eyes. When that time comes, especially if it's something of significance, it could be glaucoma, it could be cataracts, it could be an eye infection. When you need help, want you to consider these people, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. In fact, I will invite you to just give them a call if you need help. Set up an appointment and make sure you tell them you heard about North County Eye Center on Hacksaw's podcast. These people are elite, super professionals. These people, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. A reminder, go to their website, get their phone number, give them a call, and introduce yourself. Tell them you're one of Hacksaw's viewers on his podcast when you need help with your eyes. And our podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Does not matter what the project is, whether it's for the family room, for the living room, for the bathroom, for the kitchen, for the back patio, or if it's possibly out by the pool. When you need work done, you have projects for 2024. Think about materials. Think about people who can give you ideas. Think of them as consultants. DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. Back here, our Two Continent podcast on a Thursday as we go towards the great sports weekend. It's great to have you with us. I'm based here in San Diego. He is back there drinking Guinness beer on a long vacation in Ireland. John Riley, normally broadcast from left field, but he's on the aisle today. John, just give us 30 seconds of where you've gone, what you've seen, or if you just spent all your time in cathedrals and in pubs.
Well, flew into Dublin, went to Guinness, like you would recommend it, had a great time there. Then drove down to Kinsale, which is just south of Cork, went on some walks there. I have a lot of ancestry research I'm doing there. Then went down to Misenhead, which is the very southern tip of one of the peninsulas in Ireland. It was spectacular. Now we're on the Barra Peninsula along near Glengariff is where our hotel is. I'm in this kind of a lounge room that they let me use to do the podcast with y'all. And we've got some more planned. We're going to go by the cliffs some more and head back to Dublin later on this week.
And John, I'll just remind you, give your wife your credit card. When you get to the community of Waterford, just wait for her outside as she goes shopping for chandeliers and lights and vases and everything. John is going to Waterford Crystal. John does not know what he's going to experience when wifey walks in and sees everything that's for sale. So, John, just give her the card. That way you won't get upset. Hey, listen, we're going to try to do this right at the end. Introduce for everybody's on our live stream how this Fans Forum is going to work from here in San Diego and back there in Ireland.
Yeah, so Fans Forum is going to happen. I mean, we got a bunch of guys in line. Scarlet and Blue has got some comments. We got John. We've got David. We've got a bunch of other guys that want to get involved. If you have a question or comment for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, type it into the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's headlines.
And a reminder, if you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week. You won't find the amount of information anywhere else that I give you every morning. It's LeeHacksawHamilton.com. And when you go to the homepage, there's a big orange box in the upper right-hand side. Just fill it out, put your name in, get onto our mailing list. Want you to join our Hacksaw's Insiders group. John, we've covered baseball. We've covered football. We got hoops to talk about.
Yeah, Laker fans are really interested to find out who is going to be the next coach. But is J.J. Redick really a serious consideration?
That's what's being reported, which is really absurd. But I guess anything involving the Lakers and their current leadership takes it to an absurd level. They have permission to interview 6 people, and I believe they're starting this weekend. The burning question, John, do you want experience, a proven winner, a no-nonsense guy, a veteran coach? Or do you want a young coach who might be a bright light, but is there a problem if you go young? The superstars will walk all over him, and you're never, ever going to make any progress. So those are the burning questions as the profile. What kind of coach do the Lakers want? The latest names that have surfaced and I think are hot candidates. Now, they're mentioning J.J. Redick, who works at, obviously he's a basketball junkie. He works at ESPN. I don't know that he's fully qualified to be an NBA coach. The name that just surfaced yesterday, I think, has got great credibility, is Sam Cassell, legendary point guard, longtime player, key assistant for 3 different clubs, including the assistant head coach for Doc Rivers when Doc was running the LA Clippers. The next name is James Borrego. He's an assistant with the New Orleans Pelicans. He was there, has been there a long period of time, working relationship with Anthony Davis when AD played for New Orleans, breaking in. Third one is a guy that I think has got great credentials. He was a head coach in a bad situation with the Brooklyn Nets. He got bounced. He's become a key guy for Steve Kerr. Kenny Atkinson, Golden State Warriors assistant coach. Those are 3 of the hot names. There's 3 other assistant coaches, one in Denver, one in Minnesota, one in Dallas, that have also been given permission to interview. Here's the wild card. And this story is just, I don't know, it's been reported extensively, maybe not at all. The Lakers are working with Mike Krzyzewski, the retired Duke coach, to kind of be a point man and a front man to evaluate the guys that they're going to interview. Now, I don't know if Coach K was going to actually take part in the interviews with the Lakers organization, but Coach K has kind of been brought in to the inner circle. I kind of find that really fascinating. John?
Yeah, this is perplexing who they're talking about getting. I mean, the J.J. Redick one just blew my mind. It's kind of like when Doug Gottlieb got the job up in Green Bay. I don't. You were talking about Budenholzer, who was the Bucks coach. That sounds like a good fit. What do you think, Lee?
Well, he's gone. Budenholzer just got hired, signed a 5-year deal in Phoenix hours after they fired Frank Vogel. But Budenholzer, he's established. He won in Milwaukee. He's got a real hard edge to him. And that burns the question, what kind of relationship would the superstars have with him if he's a real thorny guy? He's kind of gritty. Sandpaper personality sometimes. How would that work with veteran guys? John, you'd have to tell me. And do you think there should be concern? Do they get a veteran who's not a retread, but a veteran with experience who's going to lay down the law? Or is there a big problem if they bring a young guy in? These players are going to walk all over him.
Yeah, I like the Cassell idea. I think he's a good choice. But when you have LeBron on your team, I mean, it makes you wonder who the head coach really is. Who's making the decisions?
Now, also, there's insinuations, LeBron, player, captain, circa general manager. Because the feeling is LeBron's forced a lot of roster changes with guys he thought would work out. And as we talked about last week, Lakers have gone through 33 veteran players on the roster in the last 4 years that Pelinka's brought in there to try to fit, from Carmelo Anthony to obviously Westbrook to a whole bunch of other guys that didn't work. And a lot of people insinuating LeBron's fingerprints are all over some of those acquisitions too.
You remember back in the day, it was Frank Robinson, I think, was a player and a manager for was it the Indians at the time? I mean, did they have done that in the NFL or in the NBA?
No, not recently, not modern day. Back in the day, yes. But I was in Cleveland when Frank Robinson was a manager and a designated hitter. And it was a struggle, and it didn't really work. They weren't very good. And that was his first job as a manager, and the reviews were not real positive there. But in terms of player coaches, unless you're drugging me back to the 1930s and 40s when there were player coaches in the NFL, and maybe even back in the NBA in the 1940s into the 1950s, no, that's back in the day. So I'll be interested to see where they go. We got basketball playoffs to talk about.
Playoffs, yeah, we got the NBA coming up here. Injuries, inconsistency. Tell me more, Lee.
Up and down performances. It's been a strange week and a half in the NBA. Boston just ran Cleveland out of the playoff series. Sadly, the Cavaliers caved in by injuries. They lost Donovan Mitchell with a calf injury. They didn't have their big center, Jared Allen. Darius Garland got hurt and was limping around, trying to play, and Boston really turned up the heat and finally knocked him out. Big storyline coming out of what happened last night when the Celtics blew him out is, will J.B. Bickerstaff get fired? He's been there 4 years, but they've never really gotten back to what they were. That's one item. The next item is the New York Knicks in Indiana. That thing's been kind of a sumo wrestling match. The guards have played well at times, but they've been nagging injuries. Jalen Brunson got hurt, and it looked like they said he had an ankle injury. It looked like he had a groin injury, but yet he comes back the other night and he scores 44 points. They don't have OG Anunoby, the big forward, and of course they don't have Julius Randle. But it's interesting, and they're playing Indiana in Game 6 of the series. Indiana has to win or it's over. But it's interesting. Tom Thibodeau, you look at him on camera, he looks like a Brooklyn taxi cab driver. He's loud and he's obscene and all that. And his response to all the injuries the Knicks had, hey, no effing excuses, just go play. And then you got Minnesota, Denver. And the Joker, Jokic, scores 40 last night. And now Denver's back in the series. If you recall, they were down 0-2, went to Minnesota, won both of them, came home, just won again. Now they're going back to Minnesota. The mental toughness, the mental capacity of the Timberwolves bigs is really being questioned because they're not playing very well right now, especially not the way they played the first 2 games of the season. And then you got Dallas Oak City and Luka Doncic, bad knee, bad ankle. He's still scoring points. And Oklahoma City, I think the reality is, and they're about to get closed out of the series, John, the reality is you have to walk through the playoff experience one time as a young team to understand what it's all about and how tough it is. And I think that's what's happening to Oklahoma City. Might have played well in an odd game or two, and all of a sudden it's like the roof is caving in, and these guys are about to run them out of the series. This would be a learning experience more than anything else. So, John, that's my summary of the playoffs.
Well, it seems like a lot of these series are really competitive. They're, 2-2 or, what have you. But maybe is this the year the Celtics just kind of run through the East and maybe into the finals?
Well, I think so. I think we might be, maybe it's premature to talk, but we might be talking Boston firepower against Denver firepower. The only issue is Denver is so erratic as to what they're going to get on certain nights from Jamal Murray and what they're going to get from Kenny Porter. And sometimes the Jokic has to do the whole thing by himself. But, Swami says we might be projecting a Denver-Boston finale. One other basketball topic on the table. This is an interesting debate we're going to have here. John, go ahead.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark making news. WNBA opens up.
Well, let's take it a whole bunch of different directions. These are the headlines. They drew 2.1 million viewers for the opening telecast. Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever at the Connecticut Sun. All-time record. Ticket sales. 93% more tickets sold for opening night around the league than had ever been sold before. This is obviously all a byproduct of the greatness of what Caitlin Clark did to women's college basketball. But on the floor, it didn't go very well. Caitlin Clark was overwhelmed. Very poor first quarter in her game against Connecticut. 0 for 4, couple of fouls, bunch of turnovers. Couldn't operate in space. Got physically mugged in the backcourt. never looked comfortable. She did finish with 20 points, but that was on 5 of 15 shooting. She had 10 turnovers in the game. It looked like the stage was too big. The talent level she was facing was too tough. So this bears watching going forward. Will they be able to fix the offense in Indiana to allow Caitlin Clark to get better looks, because she really struggled? The other big name that came out of the NCAA tournament was the big center, Cam Cardoso. She's supposed to start the season with Chicago. She's out, a sprained shoulder. That's a tough blow. But Angel Reese is also on that team, so Chicago will be fascinating to see as they open their season. Bad news for Brittany Griner, and we're all waiting to see her back. She started to open up and talk about the terrible Russian experience. Brittany Griner has a fractured foot. She will not start for the Phoenix Mercury. She will miss the start of the season with a foot and a toe issue. I watched the Caitlin Clark debut. Just not the same player right now, because the level of athlete collectively in the WNBA is much bigger, much faster. I was pretty impressed with what Connecticut did, and I felt bad for her because I think you could read the body language and the frustration that she wasn't getting open, she wasn't getting looks, she was getting mugged. She had real toughness with people in her face because they're much quicker defensively. John?
Yeah, I remember we were watching the NCAA Final Four. A lot of the WNBA veterans told everyone that she was going to be facing some big women that are fast and strong and tall. And that she was a big target there on day one, on the opening day, when everyone's talking Caitlin Clark, and the veterans said, hey, this is a step up. Let's see what you got.
Okay, we go from basketball. Let's move on. Next topic on the table is on the ice.
NHL playoffs, Lee. What's the latest?
Let's run around here. Coaching carousel, item 1. There's still 5 NHL jobs that are open. Seattle Kraken are talking to Todd McClellan, the ex-Kings coach. Now, he's a finalist for 3 other jobs, but it looks like Seattle might make a move on him quickly. I think that the point of discussion, although you can give him a 3-year contract, a 4-year contract, or a 5-year contract, they need leadership in Seattle. McClellan, the ex-Kings, Edmonton, San Jose guy, might be the guy. In Toronto, obviously, they're talking about McClellan. They're also talking to ex-St. Louis Blues head coach Craig Berube, who led the Blues to the Stanley Cup Finals a couple years ago. New Jersey, I thought, was going to move on McClellan, but it may be that McClellan doesn't like New Jersey, only because they don't have a lot of talent on that roster, and he doesn't want to go into a massive rebuild thing. In Winnipeg, in which they lost their coach, Rick Bowness, who surprisingly retired, I think it was probably driven by health and age issues. Winnipeg might promote Scott Arniel, but one of the big stories is that Winnipeg today is making contact with a pretty good coach in the American Hockey League who had formerly been in Edmonton, and he might wind up going from the Hershey Bears to the Winnipeg Jets. We've had 19 coaching changes in 2 years in the NHL. I mean, the volatility for head coaches in the NHL, I mean, it's amazing. There's only 30 jobs in the league. 19 coaches have been fired, John, in that 30-year window. The other storylines, obviously, with the NHL, the referees. The playoffs have been marred by, I just think, crap job officiating. Cheap shots everywhere. Abuse of the goaltenders in the crease, brutal slashing incidents, head-first hits into the boards, and the referees and the linesmen are standing there watching this and not whistling very many penalties. I don't think the NHL needs to sell violence to be successful, and I think this round that we're watching right now might be the worst officiated round I've seen in a long time in the NHL. And on the ice, the Boston Bruins are on the brink of extinction, which is a shocker. Florida could knock them out. Edmonton, Vancouver is like that sumo wrestling match. I mean, you talk about death blows and you talk about struggles and goaltenders and all that. Oilers and the Canucks are 2-2 going back to Vancouver for Game 5. And the interesting story is the San Diegan Thatcher Demko is back at practice this week. He's been out with a knee tendon issue. He is practicing. I don't know if they're going to pull Artur Shilovs, the Latvian goaltender who's won 4 games for Vancouver, is their third guy coming off the bench. But it looks like Demko might be available maybe for Game 6 or Game 7, but that All-Canadian series, the TV ratings are through the roof. It's tied at 2-2 as they go back to Vancouver. John?
Such an awesome, take here with all the NHL going on. But I'll tell you what, when I'm here in Ireland, I'm at a pub drinking a Guinness, a big pint. They don't have NHL games on this big screen there. It's something else. So I'm a little bit out of touch here, but I appreciate the update, Lee.
Well, you're broadcasting from left field most time. You are out of touch. I understand that. Hey, did you buy the newspaper? Did you buy the Irish Times, the national newspaper? Did I tell you to go to the back and open up the sports section? Did you find 5 pages of soccer, 2 pages of hurling, and the report on the darts competition?
Yeah, pretty much. That's how it goes out here. I mean, it's a different world in Ireland. From a sports perspective, I'm looking forward to coming home.
If you're a hockey fan, jump on my hockey hotline. Fans Forum is open. The chat box is open. We're going to try to take as many as we can. John, we got other topics on the table. Take it.
The Preakness is up here. Another Triple Crown race, Lee.
Well, it's a Triple Crown race, and a nice headline, who's in, who's out, because this whole thing has changed in about a span of 48 hours. Let's first of all start with Bob Baffert. He is cleared to bring his horses into Pimlico to run in the Preakness. He brought Muth, the outstanding 3-year-old who had won the Arkansas Derby and had beaten everybody that was in the Kentucky Derby. Muth was about to become the favorite. They flew the horse in from Saratoga, shipped it to Pimlico. The horse woke up the next morning with a 103-degree fever and stopped eating. Horse has a virus. The horse has been scratched. Muth could have won at Pimlico, is not going to run. Maybe it'll run at the Belmont Stakes. We're now back down to an 8-horse field. Mystic Dan recovered from his eating disorder. He had won the Kentucky Derby, was shipped to Saratoga, had some discomfort, didn't eat for a couple of 3 days, and there was concern, does he have a virus? They were going to scratch him. Instead, he started to function normally, trained very well. They flew him in yesterday. So Mystic Dan becomes obviously the horse to beat. But it's probably the most diluted field we had at the Preakness in a long time, because the second-place Derby finisher, Siona Leone, and the third-place finisher, Forever Young, are going to bypass the Derby. So it's not a 20-horse field, and it doesn't have the favorite. So that means a second jewel of the Triple Crown could obviously be one that Mystic Dan wins. If Mystic Dan wins that, we have a legitimate Triple Crown horse going to the Belmont Stakes. Muth might be ready to run at Belmont in the third jewel.
Well, why don't they get additional horses, like, the next tier down, to fill in the gap so they can go from 8 to 20 and have a full field?
You have to qualify. You have to earn points, John, in all these different stakes races leading up to the Triple Crown. If you don't win in all these races, you don't compile points, which means you've won and placed or showed. In a lot of these other events, you don't qualify from a point standpoint. It's become a problem because of injuries, etc., where suddenly horses that run the Derby don't seem fit enough 2 weeks later to come back and run at the second jewel of the Triple Crown. A bunch of them do resurface, 5 weeks out when we get to the Belmont Stakes in June. So it's kind of become a problem. Okay, we go from that. Last topic on the table before we get to Fans Forum, and this involves the PGA Tour. Yeah, PGA, LIV. I mean, is this merger ever going to happen, Lee? Well, first of all, first things first. This is a great afternoon. Today is the opening day of the PGA Championships in Louisville. Xander Schauffele, the Aztec, 9 birdies today. Now, he teed off early at Valhalla, shot a 62. He's in first place by a wide margin after the first day of the PGA Championships. And they're playing with a loaded field because a lot of the LIV guys are qualified to play in this tournament. So we got the PGA stars, Scotty Scheffler and friends, and the LIV guys teeing off. But Xander tees off early, 9 birds, cars a 62. That's pretty impressive. Now, the storylines off the course were kind of overwhelming what's going on the course. Rory McIlroy is in the field this weekend, and he sounded off yesterday. He says he is not optimistic there's going to be a merger. He said there are way too many personalities and too many people with agendas between the PGA and the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, trying to negotiate the merger, and they're not making a lot of progress. The chief negotiator representing the PGA, Jimmy Dunn, resigned from the negotiating team early this week, John, while you're on the plane going to Ireland. And he was a guy that was going to pull out all the ideas and try to get a deal done. He stepped away, dissatisfied with how these, quote, negotiations have been structured. And there's kind of an insinuation from some of the players that the PIF is just trying to pull power play. You know, they're putting $3 billion into the merger. They want to run everything. They want Saudi leadership, not necessarily Greg Norman, but Saudi leadership. And now suddenly the question becomes, what happens to the U.S. Tour? I mean, we got 35 guys who've already gone abroad. If this thing doesn't get done, are they going to steal McIlroy? They're going to come back and throw more money at Xander. What happens with Scotty Scheffler? Who's left? And in the big picture of things, we've talked about this prior. Players are making a lot of money. Guys here who stayed for the PGA, they're making increased purses. Guys who went abroad are making phenomenal amounts of money. But the tour is choking to death because the TV ratings are so rotten. So it's a big issue. And it's too bad because this tournament this weekend, the PGA Championships, that's Grand Slam. And the roster, you know, involves Scotty Scheffler and Xander and Rory. And it involves Koepka and Rahm and DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson, who's kind of disappeared over there in LIV. And, of course, it's got Tiger and Phil trying to make the cut. And the attention should be on how good this tournament is. Instead, all the attention, even as they teed off early hours this morning, and Schauffele shot a 62, the whole topic of conversation was this whole thing is collapsing all around them. What the hell is going to happen to the future of golf? So, John, that's the headline. But how about X? How about Xander? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. And we're always rooting for our local boy Xander from Scripps Ranch in San Diego. Go Aztecs. But, you know, it's interesting. When you see the NFL is so well run, you know, the NBA and the NHL as well, TV ratings are through the roof. Here, MLB is screwing up with their regional sports providers. The cable TV contracts are blowing up. And now LIV and PGA can't get their act together. I mean, it seems like they're just killing their own sport.
Well, I still think there's an awful lot of ill will about, are we going to let these guys who violated their PGA Tour card come back and join us without a penalty? You know, and evidently there's resentment from the Saudis now that why should my guys have to pay a fee to get back on the PGA Tour? And you got Rory McIlroy and some of these other guys quietly behind the scenes are barking, you screwed us. You left us. You violated your tour card. We're going to let you back into the fraternity. It's really complicated. So we'll see if there's a meetings of the mind. You know, this was supposed to be done by December. It was not. And now we're in May and they've missed the second deadline because they had told us April 30th would be the end all be all. And now we're in May going to June and no solution at all. Hey, listen, our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego. You got projects to do. You need DIXIELINE to be your best friend. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. We will all need help with our eyes somewhere down road. If that time is now, call and make an appointment. And make sure you tell them, Hacksaw, North County Eye Center. It's on the podcast. That's why we're calling. Call North County Eye Center to get some help with your eyes. John, put that glass of Guinness down. It's time for your favorite segment from Ireland, Fans Forum. I'm sure you got some friends out in left field who got questions.
Yeah, we do. Okay, let's go here to David. And he says, hey, I'm a Dodger fan first, but also cheer for the Padres as a local. But the Padres are kind of boring to watch right now, giving up a lot of runs, not scoring that many. They outscore other teams by +4.
But they're not hitting with runners in scoring position. And their big four guys are really doing poorly offensively. And, you know, it's too early to give up on the season, say the season is lost. But I will tell you, when you look at Padre baseball right now, they're not very productive. And this team looks like last year's team, and last year's team was an underachieving team. Manny Machado does not look right to me. I don't know if they need to take him off third base and just let him concentrate on DHing. I don't know whether maybe, and he's admitted he's not 100% again. His elbow is bothering him. If that's the case, maybe you put him on the disabled list. I don't know what they're going to do with starting pitcher 5 because they're not getting any run support, and he's not pitching very well, and they have nothing left in the farm system to plug in there. So it's not quite the same team. It's interesting, leading off with the Padres, the LA Times has just put on our website a big story about Padre economics, and has talked very positively about San Diego as a baseball community and how the Padres, despite the ticket price hikes, have really done a job making Petco Park a destination point, and how the fans are just pouring out. Padres are second in the Major League Baseball in attendance, despite where they are in the standings for the second year in a row. So LA Times has kind of, Bill Shaken there, who does their sports business columns, has written a really positive review of how the Padres are operating their franchise. John?
Nice to hear that. This week, here I'm on the other side of the globe, and I'm following Padres Twitter, and they are so angry at Manny Machado. I mean, people think he's a cancer. We got to get rid of him. And I saw the post-game presser with him, and it's the same Manny, where, hey, I'm working, I'm grinding, it's a long season, that whole thing. But yeah, he did hint that maybe that elbow is barking a bit. I mean, what's your take on Manny? Is he dogging it, or is this maybe just his personal style that rubs people the wrong way?
I think his past style rubs people. I think he's a different player. I think he's a different person now. When he came out of Baltimore and he went to Dodger Stadium, and then obviously he came to San Diego, he carried with him all his bats. He also carried with him a reputation of being a punk. And I did not interact real well with him very early, but I think I've seen changes in him. And I don't know whether marriage and fatherhood has changed his view, or whether his relationship with Peter Seidler changed him. He acts and looks like a different guy. I wouldn't go down to that clubhouse every day and ask him the same old questions. Give him some space. Let him see if he can get healthy. He's not a 222 hitter, but he doesn't look right to me. I think he's having elbow problems, and I think they need to take him off third base. Just let him DH and let him do all the strength stuff. But I might be in the minority. Go ahead, yell at me if you wish. I think he's changed a lot, and I dealt with him a lot early on when he got here, and I didn't like the guy I saw. This is a different guy. At least I think so right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe in Manny. Manny has carried this team on his back on many occasions. It's a tough stretch right now. Padres just got to get over it. They won 4 series in a row prior to Colorado. I think the future still looks okay. Let's move on to the next guy. Let's go to John.
I don't know that I can buy that, but
okay.
John, they're 6-11 against bad teams. 6-11 this season. Last year, they lost 15 games to bad teams. This looks like a rerun of a rerun. But next question, go ahead, fans forum.
Okay, let's go to John. He says, I remember the Cardinals dumping Keith Hernandez. It shocked the team, but it worked up some of the players. Who needs to go for the Padres?
Well, in all honesty, you can't trade these contracts. These contracts are extensive in terms of length and term. These contracts are expensive. You start talking $30 million year contracts for a whole bunch of these guys, John. I just don't think there's anybody that's going to take on Bogarts. I don't think you're going to trade Tatis. I don't think Preller would do that. I don't think you're going to trade Manny Machado. Obviously, Yu Darvish is headed towards age 38. You're not going to trade him. Why? You think you could be a wild card playoff team. Granted, there's a lot of baseball still to be played. You're a quarter into the season. But at the end of the day, it's just not been really, really productive. So, and here's the issue is they screw this thing up with Colorado. I thought they're going to put together a freaking unbelievable winning streak. And they screw this up with the Rockies, John. And now they got to go play Atlanta. And who's just around the corner coming this way? Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and all the big bats of the New York Yankees. So Padres can't afford to go into the dumper because they're 7.5 back now.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. But, there's been talk about Stephen Kolek, who's the Rule 5 pitcher. Maybe this isn't quite the time for him. Maybe the Padres just send him back to Seattle. I bet Keith Hernandez would help him move.
Well, he's had some good outings and he's had some shaky outings, but I don't think he's that big a problem. They got a hit. They get all these guys on runners in scoring position. That, to me, is a big issue. John, next question.
Next question. Okay, here we got one from Scarlet and Blue. Question: why are the Padres so obsessed with the Dodgers and unable to beat bad teams like the Rockies?
Oh, Scarlet and Blue. Big brother, little brother syndrome. That's item 1. Padres expansion team, West Coast, Pacific Coast League. Dodgers came here in 1958. How many rings do the Dodgers have? Things like that. Dodgers, big budget. Padres, small budget, bad ownership. That's all a piece of the equation because there's just an awful lot of Dodger-Padre history. And occasionally they beat him, and occasionally they upset him, and occasionally they knock him out of the playoffs. But in the big picture of things, it's their rival. I don't think the Dodgers look at San Diego as a rivalry. I think the Dodgers' rivalry is with the enemy in San Francisco, whether that's a good team or a bad team. So I think that's the whole mindset of what's gone here. That's L.A., bad traffic and smog and all that, and we're San Diego and we're different. It is that the fans here view it as a rivalry.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's a rivalry, especially for Padre fans. But it is weird, how they can play so well and then suddenly look completely incompetent. You see Tatis miss second base coming back. Sometimes you'll see strikeouts by Manny or Tatis that seem like they're almost going through the motions. There's no fire. There's no grit that you want to go out there and really punch a ball through the hole.
I concur with you. You're seeing the same game I am, and just in terms of their inability to produce, especially when they get all these guys on bases. How do you lose to a Rockies team that walks 11 guys in one game? That's amazing. Yeah, the Padres, $160 million payroll, John, 3 for 23 with runners in scoring position in that series against the Rockies, who were 8-28 starting last week. It's staggering, just an amazing. Scarlet and Blue, when you get the answer, get back on Fans Forum, let us know. John, next question.
All right, well, I think Robert has an answer here. He says, not giving Bud Black any credit. Rockies took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Maybe Manny has to go down to hitting 7th in the lineup.
Well, Bud Black, I'll say this. There's something when they play the Rockies. Maybe it's intangible. That maybe Bud Black walks home every night and says, I beat him again. They're the ones that fired me. Bud Black's Rockies have had more success against the Padres than you would imagine, and the Rockies haven't been very good. And, get this. The Rockies took 3 straight without their big bat, Chris Bryant, who's always hurt, and without their top rookie, Nolan Jones. Those guys are both in Albuquerque on rehab assignments, and the Rockies took 3 straight. They don't have the ace of their staff, Kyle Freeland, who's also on the disabled list. So it was weird, and Bud Black's team swept them. I think it's the first time since 2013 the Rockies, and that was in the Matt Holliday era when they were really good. First time since 13. The Rockies have swept the Padres. So a lot of baseball to be played, and now the Padres got to go to Atlanta. And I don't think that's going to be very easy.
No, that won't be. But I'll tell you what, look at that Colorado lineup, and half the guys, you have no idea who they are. You've never even heard of them. But, tip of the hat to Gomber. He did a good job, that lefty pitching. I still wish the Padres would start Jackson Merrill against left-handed pitchers, because I think he's proven that he's capable of doing it.
You got my memo. You're going to sign my memo. My memo this morning was, why is Luis Arias, 300 hitter, top pure swinger in baseball? Why is he in platoon mode right now?
Yeah.
Play him every day. I don't care if you put him in the field or you DH him. Jackson Merrill has earned the right to be in the lineup. You need guys that are going to produce. I don't care if they have to play 15 games in a row. Play them, and maybe you can get on a hot streak and get winning. I sat there yesterday. I said, Arias, Merrill, why the hell are they not in the lineup? It's driving me crazy. In addition to everything else is driving me crazy involving Padre baseball at Petco Park. John?
Well, I think it's because, Schilt probably wants to get, Sugar in there to play a little center field. Let some of these other guys. But darn it, they need to keep winning. So get the lineup straight. Let's move on to Steve. We'll talk a little NHL here. And Steve says, who do you like in the East and West NHL Conference Finals? God, it's been terrific to watch the battles.
TV ratings in Canada are crazy. And these are 2 Western teams. There is no Maple Leafs. There is no Montreal Canadiens old-time rivalry. This series, Edmonton versus Vancouver, has been phenomenal. I am surprised that Boston has kind of crumbled because they had a great season. Now, maybe Marchand getting hurt had something to do with it. He kind of got sucker punched. I think either he's got a rib injury or an elbow injury. Now they say he may try to play again. Marchand made an unbelievably stupid comment today at the Boston Morning Skate. He was asked about his injury and all that and how it happened, and he didn't really want to talk about it. But Brad Marchand only said, you know what the playoffs are all about? Playoffs are hurting the other guys' players, putting their other guys' players out of the game. That's what the playoffs are all about. I said, but I bet the NHL is real happy with that. He'll be getting a note from Gary Bettman. But I guess the shocker to me is what Florida has done to Boston. And Boston's goal scoring has gone away. So that's been a stunner. Colorado, Dallas, the Avalanche just lost Nishukin. Their big goal scorer, suspended for 6 months for violation of the drug program, third-time offender. He's going to be gone into the middle of next season, and that's a real bad blow to Colorado. And Nathan McKinnon, their superstar, can't do it by themselves. And Dallas does not have a lot of household names, and suddenly Dallas is about to eradicate Colorado and knock them out of the playoffs. If you're asking me as we sit here on a Thursday, I got to believe that Edmonton's going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. I just think there's way too much firepower, even though their goaltending has gotten a real bad case of the shakes. I still think Edmonton more than anybody else. And it might be weird. Hell, if it winds up being Edmonton and the Florida Panthers in the finals, that'd be a crazy matchup. But the Oilers, to me, they look so good, so deep, so gifted.
So Connor McDavid's finally going to win one, maybe.
We'll get a chance to get to the finals. That's never, ever happened. You know what the common joke in Canada is? The biggest rival of the Edmonton Oilers, the biggest rival of the Toronto Maple Leafs, their first-round playoff opponent. Because they both have a history of failing.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's move on. We got another comment here. This is from Chris Curry, and he says, Hacksaw, I have the fever, and for the next couple of minutes, I want to talk WNBA hoops with you. Pump the bleeding brakes on Caitlin Clark already. Last time I checked, Michael Jordan scored 16 points in his first NBA game. We wouldn't be drinking beers in our bathrobes watching the WNBA this week if it's not for what she's done. Sound off.
I agree with you, Chris. I mean, the enormous growth of women's basketball at the NCAA level is direct response to what she did, talent-wise, personality-wise, leadership-wise. And obviously, all the NCAA players, whether it's the ones from LSU or South Carolina, pouring into the league, have now become real attention getters. I did a mini poll on my X feed yesterday, John, and I was kind of shocked at the results because I asked people, did you watch Caitlin Clark's debut, WNBA on TV? What did you think? And she didn't have a good game, and what was the reason? 76% of the people who responded on X, formerly Twitter, said, I didn't watch, and I'm not interested. That kind of surprised me because I thought the novelty to see what she had done a month ago in the NCAAs, to see what she was going to do in the first game WNBA, 76% of the people, I would assume most of them in San Diego, on my X account, on my mini poll, don't watch, don't care.
But I'll tell you what, they're bringing in more fans, more women, female audience, young girls. I only see big things in the future for the WNBA. And, say what you will about Caitlin Clark, but she has put women's basketball, they've taken it to a new level, and she needs to be congratulated for that. And
I'll be fascinated to see how Cardoso plays and how Angel Reese plays. Both of them are obviously in Chicago. There's no doubt that there's now distribution of an awful lot of talent around the NBA. John, let's do one more here on Fans Forum. What do you got?
Okay, let me see if I can find a social media comment in here for you to react to, Lee. And, okay, let's go. Padres Dodgers. Let's pick this comment. And this is from David. And he says, looks like they did give a little ground. 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. I'll take that any day.
Exactly, but would you take 3 losses in a row to the 8-28 Colorado Rockies? Explain yourself, or may actually explain your team. That's the only thing that's driving me crazy. We talked extensively about what the Padres did last year. They had such a miserable season against bad teams, and they're duplicating it again. Last year they were 11-15. They're 6-11 already, and it's only May against the crummy teams in baseball. That, to me, is a real big issue. And obviously, no Juan Soto, obviously an injured Manny Machado. Suddenly, Ha-Seong Kim does not look like the player he was a year ago. Xander has stopped hitting. I mean, they got 4 issues here, at least at home plate, that you have to be worried about. John?
Yeah, it's just a mess right now. I mean, did you see the presser, Mike Schilt? And he was getting zinged by the press there, asking, why is this happening? Why are they inconsistent? And he kept saying, I have no alibis, yada, yada. But I don't know. I like Mike Schilt. I think he's a good leader. He's the right guy for this team. But right now, I don't think he's being honest with the media.
No, not at all. You could say protective. These guys don't need to be protected. They're making a tremendous amount of money. I do think there should be some real public pressure. The only guys that I would never, ever criticize are the guys that are trying to play hurt. And that third baseman doesn't look right. Now, Xander, has he lost his bat speed? I mean, this has been a rock-solid pro for a long time. Red Sox and early on last year with the Padres. But when you're hitting the 200s, low 200s, that's not good. And I don't know whether Ha-Seong Kim is feeling the pressure of free agency or whether scouting reports have caught up to him. He's not the same guy at home plate. I mean, he's hitting 204, which is just a shocker. And Tatis is not superstar Tatis. Tatis is now a 250 hitter who occasionally hits a home run. He's not what he was before. That 42 home run season, is that a one-time thing? Is that an aberration? That's a burning question somebody's got to answer.
Yeah, some of the people in Padres Twitter are saying Xander is washed up. It's over. He's not the same guy. He's never coming back. I mean, do you think that's true? And imagine if he does never come back from this, the Padres are on the hook on a 11 or a 14-year deal.
Yeah, it happens to guys. Guys wake up suddenly one year and they're old. If they lose bat speed, then suddenly they can't hit. They can't get around on the velocity and the stuff. I'm not going to make that judgment right now. It's way too early in the season because guys can come back. Guys can get hot. If other guys get hot, then maybe the team starts to hit. But they're sub 500, and I'm sorry. I am not going to cheerlead for this team. What we see in 2024 right now is equal to what we saw in 2023, and they're underachieving despite what the manager says. Luckily, there's still 3/4 of the schedule to be played, and unfortunately, you're going to have some injuries along the way, and I hope that we're not dealing with another setback with Manny Machado. Hey, John, this is great. We're going to be back Monday with bonus coverage. John is going to continue his global tour. Hell, I don't know. He might be in Scotland or Wales by the time we hook up with him next Monday. John, this is great. You've been able to execute, and now we got the fans involved drinking Guinness beer with you there in Southern Ireland. We'll look forward to chatting with you on Monday. Our podcast brought to you by North County Eye Center of Poway and Escondido. When it comes time to get help for your eyes, you pick up the phone and you call North County Eye Center and you tell them you heard about them on Hacksaw's podcast. Do it now if you need help with your eyes. And by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center stores, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, regardless of what the project is. Time for materials, or if you need ideas, use them as a sounding board consultants at DIXIELINE Lumber. John, have yourself a great sports weekend. Enjoy the Cliffs of Moher on the western side of Ireland. Pictures you'll never, ever forget. And don't forget to give the wife the credit card for Waterford Crystal when you let her go shopping.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I give her the credit card, it's her credit card. And so, but you know what, Lee, when you were on Extra 690, it was the 77,000 blowtorch, from Baja to the Canadian Rockies, man. We're going global now, man. This is Ireland. This is Oregon. This is San Diego. I mean, this is a lot of fun to do, Lee.
2-continent sports talk. How about that? That's pretty cool. John, have yourself a great sports weekend. We'll catch you on Monday. And for everybody up and down the West Coast, thanks for joining us on our podcast on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.